My wife quit her job and said she's going to be a trad wife now. Told her she doesn't cook, doesn't clean, and we don't have sex. What exactly does you bring? She lost it when I filed for divorce. And now begging me to take her back. Hey everyone. Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. All right, Reddit. This is going to be long, but I need to get this off my chest because what I went through is a goddamn epidemic these days. I just survived an insane marriage that perfectly proves how social media is destroying relationships. This is what happens when a woman loses respect for her man and thinks she deserves to be treated like royalty for existing. I, 40 male, have been married for 15 years to my 38 female wife, Elena. Until 3 years ago, we were actually winning. Just paid off our mortgage on a solid 3-bedroom house in a decent area. I was busting my ass as a self-employed builder, working 60-hour weeks, rain or shine, building my business from nothing to pulling around 100,000 pounds annually. Started with just me and a beat-up Ford Transit, taking whatever jobs I could get. Bathroom renovations, garden walls, fixing botched DIY disasters, anything to build a reputation. Had to learn everything the hard way since trade school was a luxury I couldn't afford. Spent my first 2 years fixing my own mistakes for free, just to keep customers happy. By year 5, I had my own crew. 3 solid guys who knew their shit and showed up on time. Marcel, my lead carpenter, could frame a house extension in his sleep. Tony handled all the electrical work and never cut corners. Adam was the plumber who could fix anything that involved water without flooding half the neighborhood. We were like a machine, taking on full home renovations and actually making decent money. Elena worked NHS management, making 50,000 pounds. And for the first time in our lives, we weren't living paycheck to paycheck. I'm talking about the kind of financial freedom where you can actually breathe. We earned this shit through years of grinding, saving every penny, eating beans on toast so we could make extra mortgage payments. The business was finally hitting its stride. Had a 6-month waiting list for custom kitchen installations, which in the trade means you've made it. Elena seemed happy. She'd brag to her friends about how we were debt-free except the house, how I was building something real with my hands, while other guys were stuck in cubicles. She used to respect the grind, you know? Would pack me proper lunches, tell people proudly that her husband was his own boss, even helped with invoicing when I was swamped. But here's where the first crack started showing. We'd go out with other couples, and I started noticing how she'd eye their lifestyles. My mate Finn and his wife lived in a bigger house, but they were drowning in debt. My business partner Nico's girlfriend drove a fancy car, but she was financing it at 19% interest like a mug. Nico showed me the paperwork one day. 600 pounds monthly payments for 7 years on a car that would be worth half that in 3. Total insanity, but it looked good in her Instagram photos. I thought Elena was smarter than that. She used to mock people who bought shit they couldn't afford, called them all flash and no cash. But something shifted when we achieved actual financial stability. Instead of being satisfied with winning, she started looking around for the next level, like she was keeping score in some game I didn't know we were playing. The conversation started innocently enough. "That's a beautiful kitchen," she'd say after visiting friends. "I wonder what something like that costs." Or, "Did you see how spacious their master bedroom is?" I should have seen the writing on the wall when she started following luxury home accounts on Instagram. Should have paid attention when she began saving photos of kitchens that cost more than most people's cars. But I was busy working, focused on building our future, assuming she was just daydreaming like normal people do. Lars, my best friend since school, was the first to notice something off. We were having drinks after a particularly brutal foundation job. "Mate, Elena's been asking my wife a lot of questions about our house lately. Weird questions, like how much we pay monthly and what we qualified for." I brushed it off. Big mistake. In my head, she was just curious, maybe thinking ahead for the future. I had no idea she was already planning our financial destruction. The property browsing started casually enough. Sunday mornings, she'd be on her laptop with coffee, scrolling through Rightmove just for fun. I'd glance over and see normal houses in our range, maybe slightly bigger than ours. No big deal. But then, the houses got bigger and more expensive. Within weeks, she was bookmarking properties that cost 3 times our house's value. When I asked about it, she'd laugh it off. "Just dreaming, babe. No harm in looking." The harm started when she began scheduling viewings. Came home from work one day to find her getting ready in her best dress. "Where are you going all dolled up?" "Just popping out to see a house with Vera. You know how she loves looking at property." Vera. Her unemployed, twice-divorced sister, who lived off alimony and child support like it was a freaking pension plan. This should have been red flag number one, but I was tired from a long day pouring concrete and didn't think much of it. When she came back, her whole energy was different, excited in a way I hadn't seen in years, but not about me or us or anything we'd built together. She was excited about granite countertops and walk-in closets and double garages. "You should see this place," she said, showing me photos on her phone. 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, amazing kitchen with an island. The master suite has a sitting area. I looked at the listing. £700,000. My stomach dropped. The monthly payments would have been more than I made some months, especially during winter when work slowed down. Even in good months, after taxes, business expenses, and paying my crew, those payments would eat up nearly 70% of my take-home. "That's beautiful, babe, but it's way out of our league." Wrong thing to say. Her face changed instantly, like I just told her Santa wasn't real. "Why do you always have to be so negative? I'm not saying we should buy it. I'm just sharing something nice with my husband." This became the pattern. She'd view houses we couldn't afford, come home buzzing with excitement, and I'd be the asshole for bringing up reality. Meanwhile, I'm out there breaking my back to maintain the lifestyle we had, and she's developing champagne tastes on our beer budget. The breaking point came when she brought me to a viewing. Beautiful house, I'll give her that. 4-car garage that was bigger than some people's apartments. Kitchen island the size of my work van. Master bathroom with a tub that could fit my entire crew. But the monthly payments would have been more than my entire take-home some months. I ran the numbers in my head while the estate agent droned on about investment potential. After business expenses, crew wages, equipment costs, and taxes, I'd need to double my revenue just to qualify for the mortgage. That meant working 7 days a week, taking on shit jobs I'd normally refuse, and probably letting go of Marcel and Tony to cut costs. I told her this, and she said the words that should have ended the marriage right there. "If you were really ambitious, you'd see this as motivation to grow your business." Motivation? I was already working 60-hour weeks. I'd built my company from nothing, had 3 guys working for me, and was pulling 6 figures in a trade where most guys struggle to clear 40 grand. But apparently that wasn't enough ambition for her. She started making comments about other couples who took risks and invested in their future. Every conversation became about what we didn't have instead of what we'd achieved. The house that represented years of sacrifice and smart financial decisions suddenly became too small. I caved. God help me, I caved. Told myself it was an investment, that property values always go up, that maybe she was right about growing into it. We put our house on the market and got the £700,000 place. But I wasn't completely stupid. Before signing anything, I restructured my business as an LLC with myself as the sole member, separated my business accounts more clearly, started keeping better records of everything. If this house thing went sideways, I wanted my business protected. The day we moved in, I felt sick. Not excited, not proud. Sick. Like I just signed my own prison sentence. Lars helped with the move and pulled me aside. "Brother, I hope you know what you're doing. This feels like a mistake." He was right. The mortgage payments were crushing. Meanwhile, Elena was posting photos of our new kitchen on Facebook, playing Lady of the Manor while I ate ramen for lunch. Living in the new house was like wearing a suit 2 sizes too small. Technically possible, but constantly uncomfortable. Every month, writing that mortgage check felt like bleeding money I'd worked my ass off to earn. I had to turn down social events because we couldn't afford them. Couldn't buy new tools when mine broke. Started eating lunch from the corner shop instead of proper meals because every penny counted. The stress started affecting my work quality. When you're constantly worried about money, you make mistakes. Had to redo a tile job because I rushed it, trying to squeeze in an extra project. That cost me £800 in materials and a full weekend of unpaid labor. Marcel noticed I was on edge and asked if everything was okay. "How do you explain that your wife's house obsession is slowly destroying everything you've built?" Elena, meanwhile, was loving life, posted constant photos of our beautiful home, had friends over for wine nights in the fancy living room, acted like she was the mastermind behind our success. She'd gotten a taste of the lifestyle and wanted more. 3 months after moving in, she started talking about her car, her perfectly fine 3-year-old Honda Civic with low mileage and no payments. "It looks so out of place in our driveway," she said one morning, staring out the window like the Honda had personally offended her ancestors. "All the neighbors have nice cars. It's embarrassing. Embarrassing." This from the woman who used to say cars were just transportation. But wait, let me introduce you to the real villains of this story. Her sister Vera and her friends Inez and Zara. The entitlement trinity, as I came to call them. Three grown women who'd turned being useless into an art form. Every Thursday, I'd come home from work to find the entitlement trinity holding court in my kitchen, sipping wine I paid for and talking like they ran a hedge fund. Vera, 2 divorces deep, no job, treating alimony like a paycheck and calling it freedom. This woman had never worked a real job in her life, but somehow became the group's relationship expert. Her longest employment was 6 months at a department store before she quit, because retail was beneath her. Inez, married to money, spends her life buying crap to post online like that's an accomplishment. Her husband worked in finance, and she treated his income like her personal entertainment budget. She'd show up with new designer bags every week while lecturing about knowing your worth. Zara, planning her wedding like she's running a military operation, acting like saying yes to a guy with a law degree makes her royalty. Girl had spreadsheets for her wedding spreadsheets. Spent more time coordinating centerpiece colors than some people spend on their careers. These were the women telling Elena how real men should behave. These three would have weekly meetings at our house, girls' nights, where they'd discuss how their men should be treating them better. I'd come home from a 12-hour day laying foundations to find them in my kitchen, bitching about how modern men don't know how to provide. It was like a support group for professional gold diggers. They'd sit around my kitchen table, eating food I bought, drinking wine I paid for, while planning how to extract more resources from their respective men. The psychological warfare was subtle but constant. They'd praise other husbands who bought their wives expensive gifts, talk about romantic gestures that cost thousands, share stories about couples who invested in experiences, and my wife would soak it all up like a sponge. Inez would brag about her husband's latest appreciation gift, a 2,000-pound handbag, because she had a stressful week. Vera would chime in about how her ex-husband finally learned to show gratitude by paying for her spa weekends. Zara would share Pinterest boards of engagement rings that cost more than my truck. Lars started warning me again. These women are poison, mate. They're filling her head with ideas you can't afford and shouldn't have to prove. The car situation came to a head when the Honda's air conditioning needed repair. Nothing major, maybe a 300-pound fix. Elena used this as proof that we needed a new car. Started showing me lease deals, talking about reliability and image. All the neighbors drive BMWs or Audis, she said, like this was somehow relevant to our financial situation. What does it say about us that I'm driving the oldest car on the street? I made the second biggest mistake of my marriage. First was buying the house. I caved again. But this time I was smart about it. Put the BMW lease in my name only. Told her it was for better credit terms. Actually, I was learning to protect myself. She got her trophy. Monthly payments were insane, but she promised to pick up overtime at work to cover the difference. Promised this was the last thing she'd ask for. Promised she just wanted to feel proud of what we'd built together. She never picked up overtime. In fact, she started working less. Called in sick more often. Took longer lunch breaks. Generally acted like her job was optional now that she had her status symbol. The BMW became her identity. She'd take photos of it, post them online, make little comments about upgrading her lifestyle. Meanwhile, I'm eating whatever for lunch and skipping drinks with the boys because we're financially stretched beyond belief. That night, I talked to her about our finances, showed her the numbers, explained how tight things were, suggested maybe we should think about scaling back. Her response? If you can't afford to take care of your wife properly, maybe you need to work harder. Work harder? I was already working 65-hour weeks, had calluses on my hands from swinging hammers, came home exhausted every day. But apparently, that wasn't enough effort for her. This is when I started losing respect for the woman I married. The Elena I fell in love with would never have said something so dismissive about my work. That woman understood the value of money and appreciated sacrifice. This new Elena was someone else entirely, and she was just getting started. The real transformation began when Elena discovered lifestyle Instagram and TikTok. At first, it seemed harmless. Cooking videos, home decor tips, fashion inspiration. Normal stuff that wives look at. But the algorithm had other plans. Within weeks, her feed was full of traditional wife influencers. These were typically young, hot chicks in perfect makeup and vintage dresses, showing off their pristine homes while their apparently wealthy husbands funded their cottagecore fantasies. Videos titled, "My Husband Works So I Don't Have to," and "Embracing Feminine Energy Through Submission." These influencers were basically running a masterclass in weaponized femininity. 20-something women with ring lights and $300 dresses, teaching other women how to manipulate men into funding their Instagram aesthetics. They'd post videos about feminine energy, while their camera equipment cost more than most people's monthly salary. Elena started watching these religiously. I'd come home from work covered in dust and concrete, and she'd be on the couch, absorbing hours of this content. When I'd ask about her day, she'd show me videos instead of talking. Look at this, she'd say, showing me some 23-year-old making sourdough bread in a kitchen that cost more than my truck. This is what life could be like if we prioritize differently. Prioritize differently. Code for if you made more money so I could quit working. The Trinity absolutely loved this development. Vera would come over and they'd watch these videos together, making comments like, "This is how relationships should work," and men used to actually take care of their families. Three women who wouldn't know hard work if it bit them on their Botoxed asses, critiquing how relationships should function. They started having research sessions where they'd analyze these influencers like they were studying for a PhD in professional parasitism, taking notes, sharing screenshots, creating group chats to discuss strategies. Inez would chime in with stories about her finance guy husband buying her whatever she wanted, because he appreciates what I bring to the relationship. When I asked what exactly she brought besides looking good at dinner parties, Elena accused me of being deliberately obtuse about women's contributions. Zara started bringing articles about high-value women and feminine energy to their wine nights. Suddenly, every conversation became about what women deserve and how modern men had forgotten how to provide and protect. The woman was getting marriage advice from someone whose biggest accomplishment was not getting dumped before the wedding. This is when I got to work. While Elena was planning her fantasy future, I quietly started securing mine. Started moving some business income into a separate account, perfectly legal since it was my sole proprietorship. Began documenting her work attendance issues and her stated intentions to quit. Started keeping records of all her spending demands and lifestyle inflation. I started documenting our conversations. One-party consent state, so completely legal. Also started taking screenshots of her social media activity, her Pinterest boards full of expensive lifestyle content, her comment history on traditional wife videos. Lars noticed the change. "You're playing chess while she's playing checkers," he said one evening, after witnessing another one of her entitled rants. The worst part was watching her attitude toward work change. She'd been ambitious when we met, worked her way up to management, took pride in her career. Now she started talking about her job like it was punishment she didn't deserve. "I'm tired of being masculine all day," she'd say. Like managing a budget was the same as working construction. Dealing with deadlines and politics, women aren't meant to live like this. When I pointed out that her paycheck was covering the BMW payments she'd promised to handle, she'd get defensive. "Money isn't everything. What about my happiness? What about feeling fulfilled as a woman?" I started taking screenshots of her social media posts about hating work and wanting to be provided for. Called it digital breadcrumbs. You never know when you'll need to retrace someone's steps. The breaking point came when she started actively sabotaging her work performance. Not quitting like an adult, sabotaging. Showing up late, taking longer lunch breaks, being difficult in meetings, basically speedrunning her way to unemployment. Why? Because the Trinity had convinced her she deserved severance pay for her years of service. Vera, who'd never worked a real job, was coaching her on how to get fired without it being for cause. Professional parasite giving career advice. You can't make this shit up. When I expressed concern about this plan, she hit me with the line that ended whatever respect I had left for her. A real man would be excited about the opportunity to take care of his wife completely. That one stuck with me. I didn't even argue. I just sat there wondering when the woman I built a life with stopped seeing me as a partner and started viewing me like an employee with benefits. I kept thinking maybe I missed the signs. Or maybe she was always like this, and I was just too busy working to notice. Lars was there when she said it. He looked at me like I'd been diagnosed with cancer. Later, when she was upstairs, he grabbed my shoulder. "Brother, she's gone. Whatever woman you married, this isn't her anymore. She's turned into one of those TikTok wives who thinks she deserves a salary just for existing." That night, lying in bed next to someone who'd become a stranger, I realized he was right. But I also knew I needed to document everything. Elena's traditional wife research phase was like watching someone join a cult, except cults usually require some kind of commitment. She found Facebook groups with names like Embracing Feminine Submission and Traditional Wives United. She wanted to be a traditional wife, but still expected all the conveniences of modern life. She'd spend hours planning her transformation while ordering DoorDash for dinner because cooking was too stressful after work. She bought vintage dresses online, signed up for cooking classes she never attended, and created Pinterest boards that looked like 1950s fever dreams. But when it came to actual traditional wife skills, zero interest in learning. "I'll grow into it," she'd say when I asked about the cooking classes she'd skipped. It's about embracing the mindset first. The mindset apparently included hiring a housekeeper because our house was too big to manage alone. Keep in mind, this woman used to clean our smaller house just fine while working full time. Now she needed professional help for a house she specifically wanted. Meanwhile, I was quietly building my case. Documented everything. I also started making smart business moves. Restructured some contracts to delay payment until after potential divorce proceedings. Started billing larger jobs in installments to spread income across tax years. Built up a cash reserve in business accounts that weren't joint marital property. The Trinity supported every aspect of this delusion with the enthusiasm of MLM Huns. Lars came over one Saturday and witnessed one of their meetings. I was outside working on the fence, couldn't afford a contractor, while they sat in my living room strategizing my financial future like I was some kind of business acquisition. He heard Vera telling Elena, "You need to establish your value before you make the transition. Men don't respect what they get for free." Inez added, "My husband didn't appreciate me until I started acting like the prize I am." The prize? Lady, you're like a participation trophy. Everyone gets one, nobody really wants one. When Lars told me about this conversation, I felt sick. That evening, I tried having a conversation with Elena, again, about our finances and her plans. I showed her our budget, explained how her quitting would affect our lifestyle, asked what her actual plan was. Her response was a masterclass in circular logic. Traditional wives provide value that can't be measured in money. I'd be managing our household, supporting your career, creating a peaceful home environment. Okay, so you'd handle all the cooking, cleaning, shopping, household management? Well, I'd oversee it. We'd still need the cleaning service because the house is big. What about cooking? I'll learn eventually. So what exactly would change day to day? My energy would be different. I'd be more feminine, more supportive, more feminine. This from a woman who hadn't initiated sex in months and treated every conversation like a hostile takeover negotiation. Lars finally lost his patience during one dinner where Elena spent the entire meal explaining her feminine awakening to him and his wife like she was giving a TED Talk. "So let me get this straight," he said. "You want to quit your job, keep all your expenses, hire people to do housework, and somehow this makes you more valuable to your marriage." Elena's face went red. "You don't get it because you've never had to manage a high-value woman." I looked at her like she just called herself royalty. "You mean someone who doesn't cook, doesn't clean, doesn't work, and still expects luxury? That's not high value. That's high maintenance with delusions. High-value woman." She'd started using this phrase constantly, usually to justify why she deserved things without earning them. Elena stormed out. Later that night, she accused me of letting my friend disrespect her and demanded I choose between my marriage and my friendship. That's when I knew for certain she had to go. The final confrontation came after Elena had been working on getting fired for 2 months. Her behavior at work had become so obviously sabotage that her boss called her in for a formal meeting. Instead of being concerned about her career, she was excited about the potential severance package, like she'd just discovered buried treasure. That evening, she came home with Vera and announced she was ready to fully embrace her feminine journey and transition away from corporate life. No discussion about finances, no consideration for my opinion, just a declaration that she was done working. The entitlement was off the charts. She'd spent months consuming content about being provided for while actively destroying her ability to provide for herself. I was done playing games. "Fine," I said. "But if you want the full traditional wife experience, you get the whole package." I laid out exactly what every video she'd shown me actually looked like. Up before me every morning with breakfast ready. Dressed like a 1950s pinup model every day. House spotless at all times, no cleaning service. Elaborate packed lunches for my work. Dinner should be ready when I walked through the door. Bath drawn, foot rubs, the full domestic goddess routine. And yes, the bedroom availability that comes with traditional marriages. Her face went white like someone had just told her being a traditional wife involved actual work. That's not what I meant. That's literally what every influencer you worship does. Thought you wanted authenticity? This is when the mask came completely off. She exploded with a fury I'd never seen before, calling me abusive, sexist, controlling. Every buzzword from her online echo chambers. It was like watching someone have a meltdown in feminist bingo. "You're trying to turn me into a slave," she screamed. "I'm describing the lifestyle you've been showing me videos of for months. If that's slavery, what does that say about your role models?" Vera, who'd been sitting quietly during this exchange like a divorce court vulture, finally jumped in to defend her sister. "You're threatened by strong women who know their worth." I laughed. "What worth? You bring salon receipts, DoorDash orders, and unpaid credit cards. That's not value. That's overhead. That's when Elena said the words that ended our marriage. I deserve to be cherished and provided for because I'm a woman. That's how real relationships work. Because she's a woman. Not because of anything she contributed, created, or earned. You want to know what real relationships look like? I asked. Partners who contribute equally, who respect each other's work, who don't demand lifestyles they can't afford. What you want isn't a husband, it's a financial sponsor with benefits. The screaming match that followed probably violated noise ordinances in 3 counties. Elena accused me of never appreciating her emotional labor and invisible contributions. When I asked for examples, she couldn't provide any that didn't involve spending my money or consuming content about how special she was. Vera kept jumping in with phrases like toxic masculinity and financial abuse, apparently unaware that refusing to fund someone's Instagram fantasy isn't abuse, it's sanity. Finally, I'd had enough. Here's your choice. We work through this delusion or divorce. I'm done enabling this madness. She chose divorce without hesitation. Not counseling, not compromise. Divorce. Because in her mind, any man who wouldn't fund her lifestyle without question wasn't worthy of her high-value presence. She packed a bag and left for Vera's that night, taking the BMW. But I was ready for the fight. The divorce process was eye-opening in ways I never expected. Turns out that when you've been financially responsible, your entire marriage and your spouse has been running up debt for lifestyle maintenance while deliberately sabotaging her career, the courts notice. My lawyer was a shark who loved cases like this. You've got everything documented? She asked during our first meeting. I handed over my evidence folder. Recordings of Elena planning to get fired. Screenshots of her social media posts about deserving to be provided for. Bank statements showing her spending patterns. Documentation of her work sabotage. Her traditional wife plans that involved zero traditional responsibilities. This is beautiful, my lawyer said, flipping through the evidence. She basically built her own case against alimony. The financial forensics were even more damaging than I expected. My lawyer brought in an accountant who traced every dollar of Elena's spending over the past 2 years. The numbers were staggering. She'd spent more on clothes and beauty treatments than most people make in a year, all while contributing less and less to household expenses. My business records showed steady income growth, responsible reinvestment, and careful financial planning. Elena's records showed shopping sprees funded by credit cards I was expected to pay off. The judge wasn't impressed with her legal team's arguments. They tried claiming she'd sacrificed her career for the marriage, but my lawyer had recordings of her bragging about manipulating her way towards severance. Hard to claim sacrifice when you have audio of someone saying, "I'm tired of working, I deserve to be taken care of." Elena's lawyer argued she gave up her career for the marriage. My lawyer pulled out recordings of her bragging about skipping meetings and plotting her severance like it was a retirement plan. She didn't sacrifice a thing. She staged her own exit to keep the shopping habit alive. We had to sell the house, which had barely appreciated in the year we'd owned it. After closing costs, realtor fees, and the fact that we'd paid almost nothing toward principal, there was virtually no equity to split. Elena was devastated. She'd expected to walk away with hundreds of thousands. The BMW lease was in my name, so I got to keep it. Watching her realize she'd lost her trophy car was almost better than winning the lottery. "You can't take my car!" she screamed during negotiations. "It's not your car," my lawyer explained patiently. "It's in his name. He pays for it. Legally, it's his property." The meltdown was epic. Vera tried arguing that Elena needed the car for work, apparently forgetting that Elena had just spent months trying to get fired. My business was protected because I'd been smart about separating personal and professional finances. The judge recognized that my company was built through my own labor and expertise, not marital assets. In the end, Elena walked away with half the proceeds from selling the house, about £12,000 after all expenses, half of our savings account, another £8,000 after I moved most of the money to another account, and some furniture. No alimony, no ongoing support, no claim to my business or future earnings. The difference after divorce was staggering. Without funding Elena's lifestyle, I had disposable income again, could go out with friends, have decent food, even started saving more money for the first time in years. Started hitting the gym regularly, lost 25 pounds, gained muscle, actually looked better at 40 than I had at 30. Work became enjoyable again. Without the crushing pressure of those mortgage payments, I could be selective about work. Started focusing on higher-end renovations, building relationships with better clients. Amazing what happens when you're not desperate for every paycheck. 6 months later, I started dating again. The contrast was incredible. Mia, 35 female. A teacher who makes her own money, splits dinner bills, drives a paid-off Toyota, shops at Target, and looks better in a $20 dress than Elena ever did in designer gear. Most importantly, she appreciates effort instead of expecting it. She grew up on a farm, so she understands work. Appreciates the value of money because she's earned every penny herself. When I told her about my business, she asked smart questions about growth strategies and market opportunities. Nothing about what it could buy her. The fireworks began when word got back to Elena through mutual friends. She lost her absolute shit. The texts started immediately. How dare you move on so quickly? I can't believe you're dating someone already. She's obviously just using you. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Then came the voicemails. Oh, the voicemails. I've learned so much about myself, she said in one. I realize now what we had was special. Translation. I can't find another man to fund my lifestyle. When I didn't respond, she escalated. Started showing up at my work sites, demanding to talk. Began calling Mia's school, trying to cause problems. Created fake social media accounts to stalk both of us online. The Trinity was equally unhinged. Vera started posting Facebook statuses about men who abandon their wives for younger women, apparently unaware that being divorced isn't abandonment, it's liberation. Inez made passive-aggressive comments about karma, while her own husband was reportedly questioning their expenses. Zara's engagement had been called off when her fiancé realized she brought debt instead of dowry to the relationship. The final straw came when Elena showed up at a restaurant where Mia and I were having dinner. She marched over to our table like she was about to deliver the Gettysburg Address. "So this is her?" she said, looking Mia up and down like she was inspecting livestock. "I hope you know what kind of man you're dealing with." Mia, bless her heart, didn't miss a beat. "You mean the kind who works hard, pays his bills, and doesn't expect other people to fund his lifestyle?" "Yeah, I figured that out pretty quickly." Elena's face went through more color changes than a mood ring. "He'll never be able to give you what you deserve." "Good thing I can give myself what I deserve," Mia replied. "I've never been more attracted to anyone in my life." Elena stormed out, but not before knocking over a water glass and calling us both pathetic. The entire restaurant was staring. Later that week, she messaged me again and offered to work on herself and be the wife I always wanted. Started listing all the things she'd do differently, like she was negotiating a business contract for my affection. But here's the thing. The wife I always wanted was the one I originally married. That woman disappeared into a social media rabbit hole and got replaced by an entitled consumer who saw me as a wallet. I replied with one message. "If you contact me again, I'm filing for a restraining order." I moved on. Maybe you should too. Then I blocked her for good. Never heard from her again since then. I think she finally realized that you can't unfuck what's been fucked. Last I heard, she was still living at Vera's place and working part-time at a retail job, driving a used Honda, the irony, and still posting about knowing her worth while living in her sister's spare room. This whole experience taught me something important. Respect is everything in a relationship, and once it's gone, everything else is just performance. Elena stopped respecting my work, my sacrifices, my opinions, and eventually me as a person. She got brainwashed by social media into thinking she deserved a lifestyle she wouldn't work for, funded by a man she stopped appreciating. Some women nowadays are being programmed to believe they're prizes just for existing, while men are expected to prove their worth through provision. But there are still women out there who understand partnership, who appreciate effort, who bring value instead of just demanding it. Mia proves that every day. The key is recognizing the red flags early and having the balls to walk away when someone shows you who they really are.